Welcome here today, Adam. I'm with Adam Riches from Netgain, CEO. Real happy to be here today to talk about all things in accounting, but how you've been disrupting accounting for a while now. We're definitely at an interesting point, especially after Salesforce announcement, going like a headless UI and everything else. But welcome.
Thank you, Paul. It's always good, man. It's always good to talk accounting. Yeah, this is great. Thanks for the invite.
So, and what's great about you is you spent time in the world of accounting. So you're one of those accountants that's actually disrupting accounting. So maybe just tell us a little bit about the background, how you saw this opportunity, just a little bit, your experience on the ground in public accounting even, and how you got into what you're doing now at Netgain.
Perfect. I started out my career as an auditor at Ernst Young. I was there for a couple of years, and then I did some time with Deloitte in their consulting practice before becoming the controller for a couple of different mining companies. Mm-hmm. And they were junior mining companies based out of Denver. And the unique thing about like junior mining companies is we never had big budgets, but we were like the companies I worked for were all publicly traded. We had our quarterly reviews, our annual audit. And so we had to comply with all of the requirements of being a public company without the budgets. And we had international operations. So we had the complexity that came along with that. And so that's, I think, where more than any other role, that's where I was exposed to some of the challenges that our profession is facing. So I was there. I think I did mining for about 7 years, and then got into the tech world at NetSuite, which again, wonderful, like fast-growing, software tool. I think one of the best accounting systems on the market. But it was there that I was exposed to all the gaps that exist inside of NetSuite. And so in 2018, me with a couple of partners, we broke off and started Netgain to fill some of those gaps. The first one was lease accounting, and then it kind of snowballed. We've got over 20 different product offerings, some inside NetSuite, some outside NetSuite.
Yeah, which is awesome. So dig in a little bit there. One of the things I just want to get your perspective on is, when you think about the challenges, especially in the CFO office, with the increasing complexity, and I love what you talked about too, is you had to run it lean. I mean, you didn't have all the resources that a Fortune 100 company would have. What were the biggest challenges for you?
It was that's a good. It's a good question. There were a lot of challenges.
It's like, which ones?
Yes, I mean, we had the demands of management. Management wanted to know the results as quickly as we could get them to them, and but then we also had the requirements of the SEC reporting and everything that comes along with that. We had Sarbanes-Oxley that we had to deal with, and then we had the tax provisions. We had it's kind of the whole gamut of everything. Yeah. But interestingly enough, our management teams were far more interested in the management reports than they were the SEC and the GAAP compliant financials that we produced. And so I think it was getting them the information in a timely manner that we had confidence in the data that we were giving them, getting it to them as quickly as possible. Like, it felt like a losing battle every single month.
And I think a lot of people still feel that way. I mean, we see it. I mean, clearly with our CFOs, I really do. I feel very bad for them that there has been this stretch in time where there's just sort of these many different constituencies that the CFO has to build the department around and satisfy. But the main one, if you want to call it the CEO, the owner, they're pressing for something completely different than what the tech stack is really built for, which is to produce a set of financial statements, right? With the subledgers and everything else, which we'll get into. But what would you see or say was the time, again, I'm just throwing out an estimate from you, spent on the blocking and tackling to satisfy the constituencies other than what management wanted to see? How much of the accounting department was built around that versus getting the information that management really was looking for?
Sorry, so how much time?
Yeah, just like when you think about, is it 20% you spent more on what management wanted, or and 80% on trying to do everything else?
It was certainly more than half on the everything else.
Yeah.
On, when the auditors were coming in, and so I would say maybe 70-30,
That's what I
maybe
was
not
thinking.
80-20, but
something like a 70-30.
Yeah, maybe 30% of our time spent getting management what they wanted and needed. Yeah,
which is kind of crazy when you think about it, right? Because
yeah.
it's almost the intelligence is locked out, right? You just can't get not only can you get the intelligence sometimes in the form you want it to, that's a whole separate problem, but just the time that's required to get to the intelligence is very difficult just because you're dealing with history. You're dealing with everything in the past, and people come in and they're asking questions about what happened 6 months, 7, 8 months ago, and you can't even be predictive.
And I do think there's a half-life on this information. Like, it becomes less and less valuable every day, every hour that it slips by, right? And so you get to week 3 of after the close, and the data you provide is largely irrelevant because there's a host of new problems that the company's trying to deal with. I firmly believe that that good accounting, timely, accurate data can help provide clarity to management. I think the more clarity management has, I think they'll make slightly better decisions. And if you start to compound those better, the better decision making over a long period of time, I think that's what sets good companies and bad companies apart, right? And I think we're suffering today from that. I know. So now I'm on the other side. Now I'm management, right? And I'm not getting my data fast enough, right? And so it's interesting. But I am a firm believer that the higher the quality of data, the quicker you get it, the better decisions the company will just naturally make.
Yeah, and I think that's going to get that acceleration in today. Is going to get quicker.
I think it's a big differentiator. I think there are companies that have really strong, robust processes, and those that are weak. And I think that it is a differentiator.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, and I'll get to your products at Netgain and really what you've built there and what you've seen as such valuable tools for people, but also just in terms of what you're going to be building, right? So. But before we get there, just one of the things I love about our conversations we've had before, which again, when we think about accounting, it's just the narrative around accounting has always been pretty bad, pretty awful, right? But the fact of the matter is, it's one of the greatest innovations that's ever come about. I mean, dual entry accounting was a major reason why we have the economy worldwide. So maybe just spend a little time, because I know you've been sort of this historian on accounting.
And you're hitting on
I love it.
soft spot. Like so, and so I know we don't have probably enough time to go all the way in. But it was during the Renaissance that double entry accounting came to be in Venice, and then in Florence, and then the Medici's expanded internationally. Largely under double entry accounting, it allowed the Medici to have these remote branches where, it's almost like the cash register, right? Double entry accounting, it didn't stop fraud, it didn't stop abuse, but it was a way to track where every single transaction, went and what was hitting the balance sheet versus the income statement. It was this wonderful way of capturing both sides of every transaction. And so it enabled it was a control mechanism that enabled the Medici to expand with confidence internationally. And of course, they were a large fueler of the Renaissance. They came up with the name the Renaissance.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I like to
Pretty
joke. Did the Renaissance, kind of drive this innovation in double entry accounting, or did double entry accounting
drive the
Renaissance? And I think there's a strong argument on both sides, but then the Dutch picked up double entry accounting, and they almost had a religious fervor around it, good and evil, right and wrong, debit and credit, right? And it was just this balance in the universe. And so they studied it. They studied double entry accounting, just like they studied arithmetic and reading and writing. And then the Dutch they were this backwater swamp, and they overnight became a global superpower the English then copied, a lot of what the Dutch were doing, including like this focus on double entry accounting. And the Dutch started to do things with it. It was originally a merchant tool. So, you go to the market, and it was a way to capture kind of a point in time how you did at the market.
Right.
And I think the underlying problem is you've got a certain amount of money in inventory you go to the market with, right? And then you, of course, sell stuff. And then you buy stuff. And so you come back maybe with less money than you went with. But maybe you have some really valuable inventory so it's a way of capturing like the economic output of like, how you did at the market. And so that I think is the genius. It's the point in time capture, that the P&L was the thing that never existed really in its truest form before double entry accounting.
Right.
And so the Dutch exploited it, the English exploited it, and then they bent double entry accounting to work in different areas outside of banking and outside of like just the merchant industry, and they did manufacturing in the Netherlands, and so that kind of grew in how it was adopted, and then you get to the Industrial Revolution in the United States, and this is where Carnegie, Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, they were all accountants.
All accountants. I really don't think the world knows that.
I know.
They all think it's like these guys were on Wall Street kind of before, right? But no, they were accountants.
Yes, and Carnegie in particular, he's got he's got his memoirs where he talked about when he was a kid, he was the accountant at a store and doing single entry accounting, and he heard about this double entry accounting thing. And he made a point of studying it, and he heard the best companies were running on double entry accounting, and so he made a point of learning double entry accounting. And it was during the industrial era, the Industrial Revolution, where I think we took it a long way to mastering the complexity. Like railroads were operated on this, the complex supply chains that Rockefeller built, like we're all on all the the diversity of business activities that happened in all the locations, were all managed by double entry accounting,
right.
and it became this super powerful tool that really brought us up into World War II, and I think that's where we got off the rails.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about,
where
because
accounting went downhill to where we sit today.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. Is like, where did it start to go? Where the value of it, in a way, just started to be not looked at as an intelligence or a competitive advantage. Because when you look at the size of the accounting departments that the three of those tycoons had, they were enormous.
Enormous, yes, absolutely. There's old pictures of these big office buildings, and you can just see, these
sea of people in desks,
running there. Yeah.
So they realized the value, though, as it's a competitive advantage. Is that the more that they understood,
invested, heavily into it.
And so I would love that, just to spend a few minutes on this, though, like where you think it did go downhill, because I keep saying to myself is that why is this not a bigger issue in a lot of conversations, right? That what happens is it's a very reactive thing. It's just get rid of my controller, get rid of my CFO. We see like turnover constantly in accounting departments, but never a real conversation around like how did it get this way? Or there's such a disconnect between. It used to be sort of this real competitive thing, and then it's kind of like just thrown to the back. It's just a back office function, where it's like, how is that a back office function?
Yeah. How did it become, instead of a competitive edge,
right?
Something that management just complains about.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And so it was leading up to World War II. Again, I think that was a golden age. Maybe even later, maybe even a little bit after World War II.
Right.
World War II, we saw the creation of computers, and the first application was on like weapons. How you set the trajectory to fire a missile or whatever, and run all the calcs behind that. If you're on a moving ship and you got a fixed target, like there's some complex calculations that have to go into that. The second application was accounting. Because you saw these huge rooms full of the accountants running and tabulating all the results. And this was something that a relatively easy thing for computers to handle, the systems behind accounting. And so they had the big IBM mainframe computers, and they're very expensive. And you'd come in and have a custom-built system to run, let's say, WIS. So all of the unique way that you interact with your customers, all of the technical accounting on the back end, everything was programmed in end to end in these big mainframe computers. And so effectively what they did was copied what all of the people were doing at those desks and built it into these mainframes. And so you had a very bespoke system to manage not your business in general, not the human capital or even the inventory, the procurement side. It was a system built to do the accounting. And so they really systematized like these manual processes in an excellent way. And so we had these bespoke accounting systems. The problem was they're very expensive.
Right.
So very few companies could afford to do that. And that worked well for a little while. And then I think where it started to go downhill was we got these off-the-shelf software tools. It was called MRP. So you could buy an off-the-shelf system, and of course you can customize and tweak these systems, but it was an off-the-shelf system, and it was MRP, so materials resource planning.
Right.
And so it went beyond just accounting, and it did get into procurement, did get into inventory, got into things outside of accounting, and became more of a business operating system. And then MRP, of course, evolved into ERP, and that's what we know today, which then expands into CRM and HCM, and we've got all of these things kind of bundled into ERP.
Right.
And as part of that, there was there's an accounting component that still remained at the core of it, but it got deprioritized. As these are business operating systems, you get more players involved, and accounting became a smaller and smaller part of it. And so we had a couple of options. We could go back and fill our rooms again with accountants to run and run all these calculations independently, or this magical thing called the spreadsheet was introduced to the world.
I was going to say that.
At about that exact same time.
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No. It's definitely a no. Right? I'm just saying, like, it was like the only tool that we were really given out of all of that ERP
it
bundle.
Yes.
It did, though. I mean, because that's been the artifact, the key place to go to try to use as a communication tool. Yes. More than anything. I mean, it's
the Band-Aid that was put over this. So now we could run all these technical accounting processes in spreadsheets. We could run consolidations in spreadsheets, right? We could do all of these things that the systems used to do. Now we can do it in spreadsheets. And so because of the spreadsheet, I think there was less pressure put on the ERP systems that are out there. And they became less and less core to accounting and more, and they catered more and more to the other business operations. And so, here we sit, and and now I think the same thing. If we're not careful, AI can put us kind of in the same trap, right? Where we have these functionally shallow tools, and we're hopeful that maybe AI agents can fill in the gaps here. Probably with the assistance of Excel. I imagine that's where a lot of the work is still happening alongside AI.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a real opportunity to change that and to come back to these deep accounting systems that can really produce the outcomes that I think we need to run our business.
Same. And I think what I'll do now is just kind of like let's hone in on the ERP. Because I agree, and I think one of the biggest challenges that we have seen with the Office of the CFO has been that they've had to become a master of many things, right? And including the software itself, the ERP. A lot of times they become almost when something's wrong with the inventory, and they had nothing to do with even putting it in on the factory floor, and it's the CFO's problem to go and fix it and update and it's you almost have to become an expert in the ERP more than you're actually becoming an expert in the new tools today, the business intelligence tools to even pull out the right data. You have multiple sources of data with these ERPs because they were so clunky. I mean, that's the other thing is that when you look at organizations that have built around this, which once was the MRP and became more of an enterprise resource plan, but it's you have so many workflows.
Yeah.
And all these workflows are not, for the most part, documented anywhere in people's minds, and it comes and goes as people, and they've been doing it a certain way for so long. So there are a lot of nuances, I think, that are underestimated in the role of the CFO and trying to understand that and manage a massive turnover in accountants, right? There's a shortage of accountants. There's complexity on the tools. So when we think about how you created Netgain, was really to try to look at what tools can we provide the office of the CFO, right? That you knew were kind of lacking in the ERP. So maybe we start with just like the cash tools alone. So like talk a little bit about how you saw this, and like we wanted to build for the office of the CFO.
Yeah. We started with these technical like subledger apps. We've got our lease accounting, fixed assets. We've got a loan subledger, and so we started there. But then we got pulled kind of into the operational side, where there's these other gaps, and cash structurally, I mean, lease accounting, most people need it. Fixed assets, some really need it, but some don't at all, right? But if we look at kind of the common problem, the common thread across businesses is this cash component, right? That is, when you're really small, I think it's easy to understand your cash position. But when you get any size and complexity underneath you, like it becomes really difficult. And at WIS's size, like it's very difficult to understand your cash position and your immediate forecasting needs. And so we went into the cash side. And so we've got our net cash tool embedded in NetSuite and soon to come out of NetSuite as well. And it's on the surface, it reconciles, your bank transactions. We've got bank feeds that come in, and then of course we reconcile it to your general ledger data. But what this does, and we're moving it from a month-end process to a daily process is what. So you get your feed overnight, and then we will run the auto matches in the morning, and then based on those, that we've got the auto matches where we've got high level of confidence, and then we've got, maybe we're mostly confident, but we think a human needs to look at it, and then we've got somewhere, we don't know where, how the matches or, where to match this data. And so that really becomes a process for the person running that reconciliation to go through every morning and clear it. And if that's done every morning, then the management team then can have a daily view into the cash balance. So if you log into your bank,
right,
you can see how much cash you have. Well, but unless you've got multiple bank accounts, and then you got to start tabulating,
the consolidation of it
all together. But you can see what your cash balance is, but you don't know what's outstanding in your GL, right? And so for the first time, we think with net cash, you can look to net cash and understand what your cash position is. But the big benefit is that we can pull out a direct cash flow statement. And this is something that I don't think a lot of people are very familiar with. We learn about it in school.
Yep.
The FASB love the idea of the direct cash flow statement. It's super clean, super easy to understand. Your inflows, your outflows by vendor, with all the wonderful detail to see how you ended up with from 1 month to the next on your cash position. We learned about them, but it was a theoretical construct, I think, to most of us. And now we have a direct cash flow, but not only a direct cash flow, one that we can produce on day one. So for me personally, like this is the report. I wake up on the first of the month and I log in.
That's what you care about.
And I review the direct cash flow statement to see where we came in on. How are our cash collections, compared to previous months? And then our expenses, of course. I love to pour through, all of our expenses, and it's all there in black and white on day one. And so the direct cash flow statement, I think, is a huge thing that we offer through here. And of course, a lot of the matching, a lot of the tedium can be done by AI. But I think we have I think there's a lot of weird ideas around AI. We don't, at Netgain, we really don't believe that AI is better than a very well thought out written rule. And so we have these rules that will apply to the bank transactions when it comes to matching them to the GL. And
we'll give an example, as you say that, maybe for the listener to say, look, here's an example of a rule that we think is better than
Perfect. Let's say you've got your lease for your building, right?
Yep.
So we've got a very unique vendor tied to your building lease, and then we've of course got a vendor bill inside of your ERP for that vendor. And if the tolerances are right and the dates match, and we can line those two up, and a rule will match those two. Of course, we can get incredibly complex with the rules. So This is a pretty basic example. We think the rule is the best way to do that match. Now, we could throw both of those into an AI agent and get a match. I imagine it would do that match pretty consistently. The problem with AI is that the lack of consistency and auditability behind why it's recommending certain matches. So the way we do it is we take the first pass with the rules.
Right.
And we apply the rules first. And then if we can't find a match with the rules, then we throw it out and have AI do a fuzzy match. And then we also have it provide a confidence interval and the reason why it believes it's a match. But we still think a human needs to be the one
ultimately
that checks the box on
Judgment.
those, at least right now. We may see more consistency with the models. But we do think the rule and then AI versus AI everything.
No, I agree. It makes total sense.
So there's still a large place, I think, in our ecosystem for well thought out programming as well. So we've got another example. We've got an anomaly detection tool as well.
Yep.
And I think this is where accounting is starting to morph and change. So we've got the close process, which you have your tasks, your reconciliations, and then of course you've got your flux analysis at the end. And the flux is really built to detect any weird outliers, any errors that might have slipped through, but at a pretty significant level, right? When you get to that point. We think there's this fourth layer that needs to be introduced, especially in the era like the technology that we have in front of us. And we've got an anomaly detection tool. So there's been these incredible statistical models that have been, these thought leaders have come out with them, and they've been proven over, time to be incredibly valuable in detecting fraud or errors in the system. And like one is a Benford analysis.
Yeah.
A Benford analysis can pick up on certain, anomalies that tend to be happening in the
Finally,
data,
we're bringing that
right?
mathematics into accounting.
So we get the Benford analysis that we all can agree on is this great tool, but has never really been applied in our profession. So we, as an example, will run a Benford analysis against all of the data programmatically. And that will detect anomalies. And then we take those anomalies with the surrounding data. So, let's say it's a payment that pops up on the radar. Well, we'll grab the vendor bill and we'll grab, anything that might be around that payment that went out. And then we throw that to the AI agent to analyze and understand the context behind that transaction. And either, one, it determines that, this is not an anomaly at all. This does fit in the normal pattern of transactions for this vendor or whatever. And it just was a fluke that the Benford analysis picked it up. Or, there are questions here that it doesn't have an answer to, and that's when it throws it out with the context and an explanation to the human for review at month end.
Right.
And this way, we're not just looking at massive errors in the system. Like we're really doing a very detailed transaction analysis of everything to pull these big errors out.
It's awesome.
But again, we go back to running it programmatically and then leveraging the AI for help and understanding what the context is.
Yeah, which is which I love too, because again, we got to give CFOs tools, because the problem that we all have experienced, and no different than our job, is just you always feel so vulnerable. Like you don't have, like, what am I missing, right? Like nothing.
No, you produce financial statements with thousands of numbers in them.
Yeah.
And if one of them's wrong.
Yeah, you're like the worst. How could you do this, And I need a new CFO.
Yeah,
so it's just an incredibly vulnerable position where the increased, I would say, expectation of what a CFO is supposed to be doing versus the tools we have is a massive gap. And that gap is, I think, just like grown exponentially over the past several years, right? So that's awesome that you're doing that. And hopefully, like, all these CFOs out there that are using NetSuite could start to think like, he has his tools, I could like do my job better. And I think a lot of people, have been trapped in trying to do everything within the ERP. And I think if we start to look at today, which is interesting because we get to this verification. So if you think about the fraud detection, we think about verification, which is going to be a huge kind of piece here going forward with the AI just becoming more prominent, right? Is what can you trust? And when you think of the environment today, it's interesting because there's like an explosion around the subledgers, right? Like all the AP tools, all the AR tools, all of these like underneath a general ledger. Yeah. Where's the general ledger? Like, so how is that going to work? How do you have your general ledger with your subledgers, and like, what's your idea here?
So we feel like in the era of AI, this is going to be an increasingly complex, like, challenge to deal with.
Yes.
When you've got your data spread among a handful of different systems, we think it's more important than ever to have a single unified database where you've got all, at a minimum, your financial information. That you can leverage these LLMs and AI agents for it. So we think a consolidation of these systems is going to become increasingly important. And so this is so we've been building inside of NetSuite,
right,
with the idea that capturing and grabbing all of that information and bringing it together. But even as we've moved outside of NetSuite, again, we're building it on a single unified platform so that all of that information resides in one spot, and we have access to it for the
Yeah, because that's what I keep wondering if people have been thinking about what happens to the general ledger. How do you have auditability, right? Like, so how do you foresee having a system that is going to be, kind of audit proof with able to track and verify the way we have today, but as things have been exploding in the different ways things are running, how do you have that audit trail?
Well, it's interesting because I think there's we're at a point where a counterbalance might be prudent and helpful. We've got, back in the day, we talked about the systems and the adoption of these like big mainframe computers. They really just mimicked the general ledger and the subledger. We call it the general ledger and the subledger because it was a physical general ledger, right? These big ledgers. And we had these physical subledgers, and we had these batch cards that would move, from the AP manager into the controller's office. But that general ledger was always kept in the controller's office under lock and key, oftentimes in a fireproof safe. And so that, there couldn't be any.
It was the source of truth.
Any changes made to it, right? And it was the responsibility of the controller, and that's why it was under, that person's lock and key. And today, you look at like QuickBooks. Look, what kind of security does the general ledger have in QuickBooks?
Open up last year's file. Bang an entry
edit
in
last year's file. Do whatever you want to do.
Right.
And so I think in this area, certainly audit trails are important. But even having an increased level of strength in the era of AI, I think is absolutely critical when we start to look at the systems of the future. So
So how are you guys thinking of the future, and how are you building for the future?
So first, we think we're excited about net cash in the results that it's been, and the feedback we've been getting. And so that's why as we look to expand outside of the NetSuite ecosystem, net cash is one of those tools that I think could be incredibly useful down market, up mid market, and even into the enterprise for aggregating and providing a cohesive view on cash. And oddly, I think this is a bigger problem down market than anywhere else, right? When you're trying to understand what your cash position is, how many days you have runway you have, and even looking forward. I think we've all probably done the exercise where you get the napkin out, you look at what you have in the bank, you got payroll coming up.
Yeah, what's my fixed cost?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So you spend all this money on on your accounting team and your systems, and here you are with a napkin,
Right.
trying to forecast, to make sure you're not going to go out of business in the next month or two.
Right.
And so that's the power behind net cash. But I really do think aggregating all these tools together and bringing everything under one roof is the right approach. There's a lot of excitement in the market today around some of these new entrants. And,
Oh, sure.
And I think we're fortunate to see some energy coming into our space finally. I think it's been decades and decades overdue.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting handful of years.
No, it is, and like happy you said that, because across all accounting has been a stagnation, I would say, of innovation. Just a lot of the products, massive, market share that these products have, right? Huge user base and all, but just not really, in a way, competitively incentivized to innovate. I mean, that's just the truth, right? So they took a huge position, and we, have sort of benefit in the beginning from that, because that was a massive upgrade at a point in time. But it slowly has just become almost the stagnation of not just the tools, but it's created stagnation in accounting, and I think that has allowed for this unfortunate gap to continue to increase, which is what it should be doing versus what is it capable of doing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, the individual is getting blamed for it, but it's really not the proper blame in many cases. Yeah.
It's interesting to see how the tech side, at least, has evolved. These innovations came through our profession. From the very early days, the Dutch to the English to some of these big titans of the Industrial Revolution in the U.S., it's a lot of the innovation has come through our profession. And we hit a spot where we've got tech people coming into our profession and building tools for us, right? And sometimes that works through iteration, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it misses the mark. And I mean, we look at QuickBooks. As great as it is, it was
Quicken.
It was a personal finance tool. It was a personal finance tool. There was no. I mean, the founder, I believe, was a product marketing manager,
and he was trying
Procter
to figure out.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
Yes,
yeah.
And so good at like getting feedback from the data, but not an accountant. And I don't think he realized it was years in until he realized that there were businesses running on QuickBooks, and so that's when I think they stepped back and figured out double entry accounting and kind of iterated their way into QuickBooks. I mean, but it's not just QuickBooks, right? Like this is, you can go down the line of founders where, they're outsiders to the profession. And so I do think that we need a resurgence of people in our profession innovating.
No, I appreciate that.
And driving the solutions that we need.
Agreed, and I think we've been. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, this is what I like about WIS, right?
No, I appreciate
you guys
that.
are very tech forward, and you guys have always been. I mean, I think we've been working together for 5 or so years now,
awesome.
And you've always been way ahead on what's out there and looking for the new layers of opportunity. And I think this is increasingly important with the pace of change that's happening, right? I think. If you're not ahead, then you can get left behind. And
I appreciate that. I think I think you have to look at how do you establish collaboration with people like yourself, and also kind of developing on real live data, case studies, workflows that are the way accountants have been used to doing things. I think that's another thing that's really missed. And what you talked about has been that tools have been developed without really understanding how that person is getting the data, where it comes from, how they have to manipulate the data, what does it really mean? Why is that an important number? And that's the same thing with tax tools, which is a whole other different conversation. But I think the complexities that have come about from the legislation and the standards and just our international economy, and just like the fact of, like you were saying before, the need for real-time information, because things have accelerated so much, and the responsiveness, which we're kind of, I think there's also this sort of, not like, it's very opaque. People don't understand. Well, why can't I just get this? Because I can get everything else, right?
Yes.
I mean, you walk into Starbucks.
No. I know when my toothpaste is coming up the hill to be delivered at my house, right? How come I can't?
How come I cannot get that number, right? So it really is interesting that we just have not been in this, because I still envision a world, which, thank God, we're hopeful and we're optimistic about this is going to happen, but that there is transparency. And there is this lack of, not just insight anymore, but really being able to provide predictive type ways. And I do think what you said before is so true. As this starts to really unfold more, where the innovation does become more available, the competitive advantage I think a company can get is just extreme, based on like you be able to move. And I think you'll start to see that, like you said in the beginning, which I thought was really a great salient point, was just how you can use this information to just build a much more competitive advantage. And that's always what I think has missed in terms of thinking about accounting as intelligence. It's just more of an historical exercise. It's been more of a necessary evil. And we've been told that. We've been told, like, I know I got to spend money on you guys, So, but yeah, we have to change that narrative. And I think what would be interesting too, just that you had firsthand knowledge in the SaaS world, just like the SaaSGeddon and like your prediction there, and what is the truth versus what the let's call it like the number of people that love to grab a story and a headline and run with it. What do you see in terms of just the SaaS world and accounting and how that's going to change?
Certainly. We are experiencing. I think it's inevitable that we're going to experience some change. My hope is that this is not, another incremental move, and that we see just kind of a slightly quicker, slightly improved system of the past, right? And that this is truly transformational. But I do think AI adds an incredible layer on top of what we're capable of doing. If we just look at just general, like, coding of transactions, there was a limited number. I mean, there's always this trade-off to having 3 segments, 4 segments, 5 segments in your account block, and the more you go out, the richer your data set is. But the more you go out, your error rate skyrockets and it compounds and goes through the roof, right?
For sure.
Because you're somebody's manually populating those segments. And so, but now I think you just think about a simple agent that can help with the coding, and now you start to think that you can go out further than 6. Maybe you can go out 15 or 30, right?
Yep.
And really have a super rich transaction line, and the power that comes behind that, and your ability to report and to start understanding the big picture grows exponentially. So the AI is providing this incredible way that we can process the huge amounts of data that we're dealing with. I think we're probably a ways from just maybe throwing it all into ChatGPT and having that be our source of truth, right? And having it automated. I think having highly structured data sets, will always be part of our future. And having, but I think the amount of structure, the amount of detail, I think can grow exponentially as we leverage these AI agents going forward. So the hope is that we don't just slightly better.
Well, I mean, thinking of that, what about the big dogs that have the installed base, right? What happens? Do they just become more AI capable, or do the AI natives start to take a lot of market share? What's your thought there in terms of how this plays out?
I think ERP is a challenging market.
Yeah.
because, and I say ERP, I mean accounting systems. Ignoring kind of the ancillary, like the other sides of the business operations that are embedded in ERP. But these accounting systems themselves are incredibly deep. And just as an example, we built NetLease. It's there's 500 whatever pages of guidance that came from the FASB on it, and we built our beta version of NetLease, based on what we understood with those 500 pages. And then, of course, there were thousands of pages of industry-specific interpretive guidance around it. So we tried to absorb as much as we could to build, the perfect lease accounting solution. And that was 7.5 years ago. And we are still iterating and deepening and discovering new, industry adaptations and new ways of expanding that single product. And so I think this is like a microcosm for what ERP is. ERP requires a decade, of build to get the right level of depth, I think, to service most industries. And so, I think there's a long path ahead of us. There's the startup ERPs, which right now, I think are promising, but I think it's that lack of depth that I think will really differentiate. It's the next couple of years where we're going to see a lot of differentiation.
And when you say depth, maybe just give a little context there. What do you think is the biggest miss on the depth? Like what is the challenge that AI native systems that are coming to market have against? Is it just the installed user base? Is it which is huge? Right, the friction. Yeah,
sure. There's one where you've got companies that have been running on NetSuite for 15 or 20 years, right? And I think they've got that much data sitting under there. I think it's a tough push to displace them, but part of it is, we saw this we still see it with the legacy ERP tools, right? You've got some large oil companies, right, running PeopleSoft, and they've got these. They've installed PeopleSoft 30, 35 years ago, right, and it's been heavily customized over the decades. And so you get a company like that now you've got all of the people that built this product that are now retiring and leaving the profession, right? And there's fewer and fewer people that know how to operate your system, right?
Right.
And so, I know of this one company that's a huge company that's gone through probably 3 or maybe 4 cycles where they've gone to look for a replacement. And there's, especially when it was on-prem to cloud, like there were all of these options that have cropped up over the last 15 years. And they would look at these options, and every option, because they had customized that system to work for their business, every option they looked at, yes, was more modern, offered a lot of conveniences that you get, but was a fraction of the functionality. So they had to give up, 30%, 40% of the functionality that was specific to their business in order to transition over. And the weight of that, losing that functionality was just too much. And so they stayed with, PeopleSoft. And so
which is crazy.
So I think we see that now, right?
Same.
So, and I think we see it with the startup ERPs, right? Like that they don't have all the feature function that some of the incumbent cloud providers have.
Right.
And so that's where I think you got that's a real headwind slowing adoption. And I think there's industries that just don't have the depth of requirements that others have. And so I think there's certain industries that might be able to move a little quicker, but it's hard. Like
it is.
ERP is hard.
No, it's really hard. And I think that there's going to be this clash of worlds colliding at some point in time. But I do think there are going to be these installed users that have, like you said, so embedded into just the workflows that have been established through the ERPs that are going to look to how do you bring an AI layer in there somehow, right? Where it's like, we're not going to unplug everything. And then there's going to be the newer ones where you think of, if I started from scratch, how would I build my accounting department, right?
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you that. What would you do? I mean, if you're starting from scratch, you can build whatever you want to do. Like, What would you do?
Man, I've got
I know, no,
time.
yeah. Go ahead. We got a few extra minutes. Like, why? Like, because that's always fascinating to me. Because that's why I feel like the convergence will happen at some time. It's no different than autonomous driving, right? It's almost like, you know, man, I wish I had gotten the autonomous drive. It's incredible now. I just was in my dad recently got it because I was like, he was having problems vision one eye. I'm like, Dad, can you go get a Tesla then? Just like, you're going to keep driving. I can't take the keys away, right? And the thing is incredible, right? And I almost like regret that I didn't do that, because once you see it and you feel it and you taste it, you know, you're like, why would I do anything else? You know, and I wonder at some point, like at some point those worlds collide, even in accounting. But like, how would you create today? Like, what is like sort of best of like, if you were to give guidance to someone, say like, here's how I do it.
I think one of the core things that's been lost, I think there's confusion around, and I was, when I was controller, like I would face this all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
We would spend so much time and energy producing GAAP financials. And then I would present these GAAP financials to the management team, and they were completely unimpressed with the GAAP financials. They wanted to know not, you know, what our amortized, you know, prepaid expense looked like. They wanted to know how much cash we spent, right? And so I think stepping back and not looking at the close as a single event, right, as a big bang close.
Right.
I think we need to separate and break it down. We talked about cash. I think there's 3 layers that are very relevant, and maybe add a fourth, but like 3 layers that are super relevant that I think we all have to keep in mind that systems of the future have to enable.
Yep.
One is cash.
Yep.
And I think that's the most important one, right?
Same.
What is the cash position? How much am I spending? What did I spend it on? Who did I collect money from? And what does my next 60, 90 days look like from a cash perspective? And I think we're closer than ever to having crystal clear visibility on that. But I still think very few systems that capture it,
right,
or do it well. And I don't know of another one that does it.
No, it's really hard, especially when you have multiple entities, multiple intercompany transactions. God, forget it. I mean, it's still a very laborious process. Yeah.
So the second one we refer to as like simple accrual. This is where you're trying to capture, really embody what double entry accounting is. It was trying to capture the economic results of a given period, right? And so I think that's looking at like what you built for an accounting firm. What did you bill, and what expenses did you incur, right? Ignoring the rev rec around what you build, and ignoring, you know, amortization, whatever on the expense side. But just looking at those two, and from a simple accrual basis, like, you know, what did you bill? What were the costs you incurred? And then what's your net position at the end of the month, right? And I think that's the most, outside of cash, like that becomes very useful for management to see how you did from an economic perspective in the given month. And then I think the third layer is GAAP, or IFRS, or both, right?
Yeah.
You have your reporting layer, that is critical for big public companies, but for most of us, like that becomes the least important layer of the 3. And then of course statutory, and this is where maybe it truly is an afterthought, right? Like what are the tax implications that come, or what are the local reporting requirements that you have to provide? And so that could be like a 4th layer. But I think keeping those in mind and then optimizing in that order.
Yeah.
And then closing cash first,
right?
And then simple
talk about
second,
the close, because the close
right?
is so huge. And when we think about the bottlenecks of getting information, a lot of times it's just they can't close the books.
Yeah,
they can't close books.
Perpetually open.
Yes, open, and then by the time they close, it's you're already on to it depends on how many days here now. Like, but a lot of companies still cannot close within 30 to 45 days.
Yeah,
it's just, you know, people hear of a 10-day close, and that's like magic to a lot of companies, right? But and you guys have developed a tool for the close. But what are some of the findings that you've had where people just find it incredibly hard to close?
So we've got net close embedded inside of NetSuite, and this is another element. Where system like close, the idea that we divorce close from our core ERP
is nuts.
I don't know. why those two weren't inherently like kind of married up against each other decades ago.
Yeah.
And so I know there's some other players that are starting to integrate the two. But yeah, that's part of it. It needs to be part of it. Your close needs to live where your accounting data lives.
Totally.
I mean, it doesn't, say it out loud, and it sounds ridiculous that it wasn't there, from the very beginning. And so, but I think the close, part of the close is just the basics. It for a lot of companies that we work with, we're in the NetSuite space, and so we deal with very sophisticated, people that have operations all over the world, and they've been running a sophisticated, close kind of task checklist informally, and they want to bring it into a system. And then we deal with others on the bottom end of the market wget it's almost kind of a surprise every month, right? That, it's like, what do I have to do again?
Right.
Credit cards. I gotta get the credit card data, and then I gotta, book the accruals, and there's really no formal process for it. I think the close, where we see the biggest benefits of close is running it like a manufacturing process and getting it dialed and having assignments on a dashboard where you can see the progress of them. And then when people get stuck, being able to flag, there's like the old assembly lines in Japan, right? Under Japanese manufacturing, where everybody had a cord they could pull to stop the production line to fix the problem that they were working on. I think raising the red flag during the close process, right, and getting everybody's attention that maybe you're struggling to reconcile cash or to figure out the accruals. I think things like this. I think treating it like a finely tuned manufacturing process. I think is the way that we need to think as accountants versus kind of this informal just.
Yeah, and
scrappy,
I think
throw it together on the weekend.
Oh, totally, because I think a lot of what you said is you are limited in a way towards systemizing that because of the ERP. It's like you're going with what the ERP is providing, what you're able to do, and then a lot of times you're using a conduit like a spreadsheet to help create sort of this collaboration tool that is now allowing you to kind of digest information and do what you need to do in terms of reconciling and having, here's my work paper. It's not even from the ERP. It's a side schedule that here's the order and give them that. And so I think that's what has been very challenging has been, and like it's laughable in a way, but when you think of a lot of lower end middle market accounting, departments, they don't have a close process. There's nothing formal.
Exactly.
There's no detection systems, right? So I love the idea of just having a transparent detection system, which would be, hey, so-and-so is hung up on the intercompany reconciliation. Let's go throw the resources at that. Let's go help out. That's where that's the bottleneck, right? But we don't know those bottlenecks. And I think I love that. And having the capabilities, I think, built into the technology is going to be a huge help for the CFO, the controller, whoever. Give visibility, right? Like, how can I organize this? But like you said, I think what's great about almost this inflection point, it's going to make us rethink workflows. It's going to make us, and that's the beauty of it all. It's going to allow us an opportunity, because we're going to be forced to rethink how we're getting accounting done. So I love that.
And I think like we talked about with the bank rec, I think the close process, it's like pencils down until day one, right? And then we all start to scramble. And I think pushing that close process into the month and executing on these activities throughout the month to the degree possible, I think is going to go a really long way in. And I think, I learned about this idea where there'd be this continuous audit. In college. I was in college, and our IT professor was talking about how systems would just analyze anomalies, right? That would get thrown out, and your job as the accountant would be to to explain these away to the auditors, and then at any point in time, there would be no quarter end
Right.
or year end. It would be a real-time snapshot
That's
of
right.
your financials, right? And I think we realize we're no closer. We may be further from that than we were when I was in college. But I think this idea of accountants, being the eyes on exceptions,
Mm-hmm.
and then providing value to the business on the insights that they have. I think so. Showing up in the morning and having, like we talked about the bank rec as an example, but looking at transactions that need your attention and review, and coming in on a daily basis, and processing fixed assets as an example, right? Instead of waiting to the month end to capitalize them and get them into the right buckets, like doing it on a daily basis, right? And I think as we get more into this where we have the data available,
I agree with
and it's
you.
in the front in
Yep.
front of us, and we've got the right tools to be able to do this on a daily basis, I think that smooths out it shrinks
Big time.
down that close
Compression.
process significantly, and I think that's the future, where the AI can run calcs for us, and it can take all of these actions and execute on workflows, and then when there's things that we need to put eyes on, that's when we get involved, and on a daily basis we can run it. But I think we also have this world where we've got these huge FP&A departments, right? And FP&A is always trying to work with accounting to figure out, the nature of the transactions that have been happening. And I think that's really become this translation layer between the accountants who are always heads down, working 10-hour days, working on the weekends, that can't answer the questions of management. So management hired FP&A to translate it for them.
Great
right?
point.
And I think that largely, I think we can, accounting may be able to talk directly to management.
Yeah, boy, and get us out of the back office.
And add value that way, right?
Right.
A lot of the FP&A function, I think accounting can roll into and provide a lot of value that way. I think accountants are closest to the transactions. They're the ones that can
can
provide the value.
And understand the fundamentals both ways. I mean, one last thing is just because you are a thought leader in accounting, and you have a great mind for not just like the backbone to accounting, but also things that could potentially become a real help for accounting, like blockchain. Like what's your thoughts on when will we see blockchain? Because it's been a word out there for a while, as the authenticity, the verification.
20 years, we've been talking about
for
how
a long
it integrates,
time,
right?
you know.
You got blockchain, you got the immutable ledger,
right?
And I think I think we'll see something here in the next 5 years. I think it's the applicability of blockchain and where it kind of fits into our profession. I know Price Waterhouse, spent $1 billion or so on a big project, and it's. I think the thinking is how to align supplier, and vendor contracts, and like how we can capture both sides of these contracts in these large blockchain systems. But I think it provides the ability to have. I think it's an incredible control lever that we can use internally in our books, right? As the general ledger has become less and less protected, I think it can become a key part of that. And so, we're discussing exactly like how we can layer blockchain into our products and make them even more robust. But we're in the early stages.
Yeah, which is great though. I love that you're thinking of it already, because I think it's somewhat analogous to just the whole MCP thing, right? You have you have a protocol, you have a standard protocol that everybody is now going to be able to connect systems, and these ways of verifying data and running that layer that's coordinated with the double entry of accounting is going to be pretty fascinating. Yeah, but it makes all the sense in the world, especially as things are going to get. I think that there is a huge need for verification and security going forward. And that can help.
And I think AI. I think the pace of advancement that we're going. I think it operates as a good counterbalance. So definitely, I think it's in our future.
Same. Which again, will be another great tool for accountants, right? And will change the entire audit and everything else that goes along with it. So. I think one thing to be sure as we sign off here is that there's a lot of disruption. I love how you talked about it one time, which is kind of a cool thing, because I really do believe there is a renaissance in accounting.
Oh, man.
And you wonder, you know, like I love, like, was it the Renaissance created from the accountants? You know, but I really do believe that this is the time for accountants, and I think I'm fascinated too to see how it all plays out. There's been so many headwinds in accounting, like, you know, 340,000 people leave the accounting profession during COVID. You have so many people that are kind of looking at, did I make the right career choice? And by the time you're age 30, it's like 50% say, I shouldn't have become an accountant, you know?
Yeah,
so
yeah. And then we forced on ourselves the 150-hour rule.
Oh, my God, right? In 1988, they came up with something that was like not having any foresight as to the demographical shifts.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really fascinating time, and I'm happy that you're building on our behalf. You've been phenomenal. You know, like working with you guys is great. And, you know, how many users are there out there of NetSuite? How many
users? I know there's 45,000 companies running on NetSuite.
Yeah, massive.
The user count, I'm not sure, but massive.
Yeah, and you're just touching. There's a big market there for your tools.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Which we're excited about, because you know, we have partnered with you to bring the tools to them, you know, to help life get better for our accountants. So anyway, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for spending the time with me, and
thank you,
continued success.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. That's a wrap on This Week in Accounting AI. If you found this useful, make sure to follow us. On Spotify, smash that follow button on our show page, and on Apple Podcasts, tap the plus sign and leave us a quick rating while you're there. I'm Paul Peterson. See you next week.